Okay, so today we're going to be looking at rounding and repeating decimals with a bit of money thrown in there as well. Okay, so rounding means that you give your answer to a certain number of decimal places. When we round decimals, we look at the first digit after the number of decimal places is given. So for example, 6.315, what we do is our number of decimal places is say 2. We go to 2 decimal places, so we go right 2 places from the decimal place. So that's the 1. Then we look at this number. When we look at that number, we look at these 2 rules. First rule is if it's less than 5, the number remains unchanged. So the answer would be 6.31. If it's 5 or more, in this case it is 5 or more, we add 1 to this number here. So that becomes 6.32. And that's what our answer would be. Okay, so I'm going to get you to do some questions that relate to these 3. Okay, and then I'll be giving you answers after you've done them. Okay, so I'll give you a pause for a sec, and then I'll come back. Okay, now I'm back. All right, so in the first one, we're going to round 2 decimal places. Oh, sorry, for A and B, but let's look at the first one. 2 decimal places would be, that's our second decimal place. Okay, 2 positions from the decimal place. So that means I look at number 1. So that's where I've got to look at this one there. And that means I'm going to get, fits this rule here. That means my answer stays as 3.64. 2 decimal places, so 2 positions from the decimal place is a 6. Sit next to that is a 5. 5 fits that rule. And because it fits that rule, I've got to add 1. Okay, so that becomes 18.9. It's going to be 6 plus 1 will give me 7. Okay, so now I'm on to round the following numbers to the decimal places shown in the brackets. So I've got 4 decimal places I've got to go to. So that's 4 positions from the decimal place. So 1, 2, 3, it's this one here. Okay, sitting next to it is a 7. Okay, so that means it fits this rule. That means I've got to add 1. So that means I add 1 to 9. So that means I'm effectively saying, think of this almost as like 29. I'm adding 1 to 29. That's going to make it 30. So I'm actually, it's going from a 9 to a 10. So the answer here would be 27.463. Don't forget the 0 there, because remember, we're going to 4 decimal places. This one here, we're going to 3 decimal places. So I go 1, 2, 3 again, because that's 3 positions to the right of the decimal place. I'll look at my number next to me. It's a 9. A 9, I have to add 1 to this part here. Effectively, so that's going from a 9 to a 10. So I'm going to go 0.0. Now, it used to be a 0 here, but I've actually going to put a 1 now because I went from 0.009 to now 0.0, effectively 10. Okay, that gives us that number there. All right, so let's go on to this third one, round 8.672 to the nearest unit. The unit is this one. So we're not looking at the decimal place, we're looking at the unit. Okay, that means I look at what's on the 6. The 6 is above 5, so that means I have to add 1 to that. So my answer is going to be 9. Okay, now let's look at money. So in Australia, our currency makes use of a decimal system using dollars and cents. There are 100 cents in a dollar. So we'd like to be able to change from dollars to cents. When we do from dollars to cents, we multiply by 100. Okay, there will be more cents than dollars. Okay, so that's like saying this example here. I want $2.45 and I want to change it into cents. I multiply that by 100. So I basically move that decimal place 2 positions. So I go, my answer is going to be now 245 cents. Okay. To change from cents to dollars, we divide by 100. And this is what we're doing here. We're changing from cents into dollars. So I'm going to go, so the cents is always going to be bigger than the dollars. So I'm going to go 20 divided by 100. Okay, what that means is my decimal place moves back like this. So it becomes $0.20. Okay. Okay, so in Australia, we no longer use 1 and 2 cent coins. But remember, we can get stuff that says, it's going to cost us $30.01. Okay, so that's why we still have prices expressed in 1 cent increments. So if we pay something with a check, credit card, or electronic thing, we can give an exact amount. So we could actually give it as $30.01. But if we pay in cash, we need to round to the nearest 5 cents. Okay, and these are the rules we follow. 61 and 62, we round down to 60. 63 and 64, we round up to 65 because you're thinking, what is the closest to there? 66 and 67, we round down to 65. 68 and 69, we round up to 70. So basically, this is using an example. If it's got the 1 and the 2 part there, we round down to the nearest 10. 3 and a 4, we round to the closest 5. So in this case was 65. 6 and 7, we round down to that 5 cent mark. The 8 and a 9, we round up to that next 10 cent factor. Okay. So Melinda, here's an example. Melinda had $50.67 in her bank account. She wanted to withdraw all her money, so the bank rounded the amount to the nearest 5 cents. How much money did the teller give to Melinda? Now, the important point here is not the 51 in terms of the rounding part. The important point is this 67. Remember what we said about 67 over here? 67 will round down to 65. So the teller would have given her, $51.65. Okay. So we're looking at repeating decimals now. So repeating. So we've got a finite decimal and what's called a recurring. So when a decimal number ends, it terminates after any number of decimal places is said to be finite. So an example here is 0.124. It's a finite. You've probably heard 0.25. That's finite because it stops. Okay, 0.75, 0.125. They're all finite decimals because they've stopped. It terminates. Sometimes when we divide a denominator into numerator, so that's what stuff we do when we get into fractions and other decimal stuff a little bit later in the year, the answer keeps repeating and the amount left over each time keeps repeating as well. When this happens, the answer is called a recurring decimal or a repeating decimal. So we've got some examples here. Okay, recurring decimals can be written in any of the following forms, shorter ways for an exact answer. So if I say 4.66666, I can round that, but that's not going to be an exact answer. So the best way, because I've only got one number repeating, I just write it like that. I go 4.6 and I put a dot above it. Okay. 3.512, 512, that's what it would be. That the repeating part is that 512. You could write it like they've shown here to indicate with those dots where the first and last digits of the repeating part are. Potentially you could also, so the ways you could write this would be 3.512 dot dot. I've also seen you can do 3.512 and you basically put a bar above the whole thing because you're saying the whole thing repeats. So then I look at 6.121212. Again, the 1, 2 is a repeating part, and that's why we write it like that. So as with finite decimals, the decimal equivalent of a fraction, so we can do this. So this part here, ignore this part for the moment because we'll do that later in the year. Okay, thank you. Bye.